Welcome back, guys. We are here for our second to last video for the Dominaria United Limited set review. The only thing that's left to do after this video is colorless, so we are going to get right into our multicolor cards. We've got Yanks on the line. Yanks, how you doing?
Good. How's everyone doing tonight?
I'm doing well. So far, we just finished a cooking stream, strangely, but not important to this particular video. But let's go ahead and get right to it with a Johnny Sleeper Agent. Oh boy, the Sleeper Agent. It breaks my heart, but I mean, it's a good name for the sad completed a Johnny. For 1 white, 1 green, a hybrid, and a white, you get a legendary planeswalker with 4 loyalty. It is completed, meaning you can, spend that mana for, you could pay life or you can pay it with forest or plains. And then the +1 ability, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature or planeswalker card, put it into your hand, otherwise put it onto the bottom. -3, you can distribute 3 +1/+1 counters among up to 3 different targets. They gain Vigilance until end of turn. And for -6, you get an emblem with whenever you cast a creature or planeswalker spell, target opponent gets 2 poison counters. And it only takes 2 pluses to minus this guy? Okay, that's pretty strong.
Yeah, that's a quick ultimate and a pretty good one, especially because your pluses are likely filling your hand with creatures.
Yep, your pluses are filling your hand with creatures, plus Selesnya just wants a bunch of creatures regardless of whether this is constructed or limited, right?
Yeah.
Now, the -3 is a little tough if you're on an empty board.
Yeah, and it is 4 pluses if you pay Fraxion mana for this, because it comes in at 2 instead of 4.
Yeah.
If you pay life.
Which I doubt I would want to most of the time. Like, I don't think that is a reasonable trade-off. I'm okay to pay the life, I just don't want it to come in with so few counters.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It depends, I guess, what else I've got to do. But if I can play this like on the play on 3 onto an empty board, then I get it up to 3 right away and draw a card, and then have something to protect it the next turn. I might be willing to do that.
Maybe. I feel like I would almost want the 3 drop turn to make sure I have enough things on the board to protect it, because it doesn't protect itself very well.
Yeah.
So maybe. That said, I think it's a fine card in Limited. What are you thinking rating-wise?
I think because it can't really protect itself, it can't be a 5 for me. But I think it's probably a 4. It's cheap, so maybe it's a 4/5.
Yeah, my bigger concern is that it needs a lot, right? You plus it, you get a card, they just kill it, or hopefully you're ahead on board, then that's great. But if you're that much ahead on board, you don't necessarily need it. The -3 is good if you happen to have creatures. In a way, the 3 also kind of protects it if you have something there for it, but you might not. If this is not at board parity or better, it kind of does not a lot. So yeah, I'm leaning towards a 3/5 just because you need to have a solid position, and if you don't, then you're going to be struggling.
Yeah, I think what keeps it a little bit higher than that for me is just because how cheap it is.
Yeah, it is very cheap.
The fact that you can play it on curve and get it right to 5 on turn 4 means you're probably not that far behind at that point, just because it's so early.
Yeah.
You're likely to be able to get 2 activations out of this at least, and then you've probably at worst replaced itself and potentially drawn 2 cards and absorbed a bunch of damage.
I'm like in the boat for a 4, but I think a lot of things need to go right. And for it to be a 4, I need to curve out 2-3 pretty consistently with the deck. If it's a slower deck, if that's not really the case, if you have no removal or things that could help with this, then I'm a little bit lower on it. But I do think that it's going to win some games.
The real question is, how many points does the Johnny lose because he hates coffee?
He hates coffee? Why does he hate coffee?
There was part of the lore. He talks about it in the storyline. He talks about how caffeine is awful.
Wow. I thought we were bros, Johnny. Wow. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Aran Benalia's Ruin. White, white, black for legendary Phyrexian human. That's a 3/3 with menace. And for 1 white, 1 black, you can tap, sacrifice another creature, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. This is going to be very strong in white because of all of the tokens that you can generate here. Getting to make a 1/1 just turn into a wide board pump is pretty awesome. And you could do this at instant speed. That's pretty strong.
Yeah, we finally found like the white-black sacrifice payoff. Because there didn't seem to be a huge... There weren't any white. And black had some, but they seemed to be kind of more geared to black-red. But this is great for exactly what that deck's trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, in the average deck, it's nice that it works with, against removal as well. If they try to remove something, you can do this in response. It makes them want to remove this. It's also a great creature for the rate as is, a 3/3 menace for 3, albeit difficult to cast, but in a 2-color deck, I'm totally fine with this mana cost. I think this card is very good, and it has a high ceiling should you be in the go wide tokens version of white. What do you think in score-wise?
I think the card's a 3 for me. I think I might have it higher, except the mana cost is pretty tough. So I think it's a 3.
Okay, I'm a little higher. I think I'm in that 3-5 range just because I think that it will fit nicely into white. I really do think that it has... The go wide is not scarce. So I think there'll be pretty easy payoffs here. So I'm going to give it a 3-5, just a smidge higher. All right, we have Astor, Bearer of Blades, 2 red and a white for a human warrior, 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may reveal equipment, vehicle card, equipment or vehicle card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order. Equipments you control have equip 1. That's pretty sweet for constructed. Vehicles you control are crew 1. Also pretty sweet for the right thing, but this seems like all of this text is mostly going to be constructed oriented, but I haven't really seen a lot. We did kind of poke ahead into the future looking for those equipments, and we really didn't see a ton we were thrilled with. So what are you thinking, Yanks?
Yeah, there's a total of 2 equipments and 2 vehicles in this entire set, and the vehicles are at rare and mythic. So
not really a lot of synergy there, and this is rare, so when you find one of those, you're not going to find it.
Yeah, this is just a 4-mana 4/4.
I agree.
Which is good, but that's what it is. It's basically 4-mana 4/4 vanilla.
Yeah, this seems very much like an EDH card. It's a legendary creature, so it's going to be a good commander for aura equipment decks, which are really cool. And I see a lot of these style decks in Brawl as well. So this will be nice for those players, but in Limited, this is just a great rate creature, 4/4 for 4. A little tough to cast, but I mean, we're still probably playing this if we are in exactly Boros.
Yeah, it's like a 2-5 for me.
I know you didn't play, but in the D&D set and in, I think, Crimson Vow, the Boros rare cards were do nothing text, which was really disappointing, right? Didn't we have in Crimson Vow?
Odric in Crimson Vow was awful.
Yeah, it's the Boros side of rares just don't do anything. So being in rare means that you basically guarantee you will get no rewards for being there, just because if you happen to find your on-color rare, it's no good. It's just a 3/3 for 3, or in this case, a 4/4 for 4. So I wish we had a little beefier stuff coming in for Boros, but hopefully we will later.
Yeah, to be fair, at least to Astor, Odric was terrible even in Commander and everywhere. Astor at least has some outside of Limited relevancy.
All right, we have Bard Recruiter, red and a white for a 2/2 human soldier. It is a legendary. At the beginning of your end step, if you control a creature with power greater than its base power, create a 1/1 white human soldier. So if you're pumping things, right? Or if it has a counter on it, will that trigger it?
A counter if it's equipped with a power booster, if it's been pumped, if you have an list.
Yep. There's a lot of options here. This uncommon feels better than our rare, and it's not close.
It's not remotely close.
So, I don't think we rated that last card. It's probably a 2/5.
Yeah.
It's just a 4/4 for 4, which is just a 2/5. This card is feeling a lot closer to a 3 for me. There's not going to be you're not going to have a hard time getting enough enlist creatures for this to be relevant. And the 1/1s then help you continue to get more enlist fodder, which is really neat.
Yeah, I think you're going to want a critical mass of enlist particularly. But as we saw, at least the red and list cards were all pretty good.
Yep.
White ones, not so much. But
And it just takes 1+1/+1 counter for this to just be good for a while.
Yeah, true.
I like that as a 3. Thoughts?
Yeah, agreed. 3.
Battlemore Battle Mage Captain. We have blue and a red for a bird wizard with flying. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain trample until end of turn. Wow, it's all creatures.
Yeah, they are really pushing this theme in this set. Like that's the 4th one of those triggers I think we've seen.
Yeah, most of them didn't go across the whole team, though, right? Like,
this is definitely
creatures. Better. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a bird. It's going to get in a ton of damage on its own. It's a 1/3 flyer for just 2 mana. A little hard to cast, but I think it's totally fine. I think this card is sweet. It's a great card. It's a great enabler that you will want as many of these in your deck as you can, should you be in these colors. So what is the rating on that?
I think the card itself is a 3, but this deck is looking really good.
I agree with that.
So that might just almost kind of end up forcing it higher just because the deck is probably good.
Yeah. Well, not only is the deck good, it's that, like, this is the card that makes the deck. So if you have this, that deck is good. So that's kind of what gives it that little half-point bump to, like, a 3.5. Just because this is the thing that makes everything come together. And it's not going to be hard to get just, some simple spells, some things with kicker, to just make this bird have an insane payoff. And it's only an uncommon. Heaven help them if you have more than one on the field. Oh, no, you can't. It's legendary. But heaven help them if you have more than one, because you're just going to kill them.
It's interesting that it's 3 triggers. I double-checked that they all do different things. Like, one is your traditional Kill Fiend, gets +X/+0 till end of turn. One gets counters, and then this one gives everything. +1/+0.
Yep, that makes sense. I will let you take this one.
Bortuk Bone Rattle. We get a 6 mana 4/4 Troll Shaman for 4 black and a green. With Domain, when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, choose target creature card in your graveyard. Return that card to the battlefield if its mana value is less than or equal to the number of basic land types among lands you control. Otherwise, put it into your hand.
Okay. So most likely this is going to hand, but in some rare cases, it might just get you the best thing you have onto the battlefield.
Yeah, I mean, green is your domain color, so pretty reasonable to get to 3. Beyond that is going to be a dedicated deck, so you're going to have to support it. But even at getting something, getting whatever, it can get an 8-drop back to your hand. Like, you can get anything back to your hand, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. I like this a fair amount. You kind of need a top end, and you don't want a ton of 6-drops, but in green you can be a little bit more liberal with how many you have. So this feels like a pretty solid card in a domain deck. In a not domain deck, are we happy to get a 2 CMC card back with this card? Probably not.
Well, you can get anything back to your hand.
Yes.
So I'm still playing it just for the free Raise Dead.
Fair.
And occasionally getting a cheap thing back if the situation calls for it.
But my question is how does that affect the rating if you're in only 2 colors? Like, how much does that, if everything is automatically going back to your hand versus in a domain deck where it's like, oh, I can get like a 4 or 5 CMC thing straight into play, that's a lot of power. So it's like, what's the difference in rating in a 2-color deck versus straight up domain?
It's better in domain. I don't know if it's maybe a half point better.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. What are you thinking for the base rating here?
I think it's a 3 and then goes up to a 3/5 if you're hard domain, like 4 or 5 color.
Okay. Yeah, I like a 3. I am on board for that. Alas, Core The Pilgrim, we have a white and a black for a 2/2 Death Toucher. It's a Fraxion Core Cleric. That says whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain a life. Whenever another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. Okay, I like a little drain. It's a bear ++ with a relevant keyword. This is great.
Yeah, it's a little. You don't see too often cards like this where the drain is split between 2 different triggers. So it's like ETB gain, death, lose one, which is it's still good. It's just interesting. Yeah, I mean, this is another one of those white-black payoffs for sacrificing things and for going wide.
Yeah, and it's not even necessarily just for sacrificing things. Like, just having this on the board as a just straight creature, cleric, or Zoff control-y type deck, you're going to be draining slowly, incidentally, keeping ahead of the race, and doing some great stuff. So, like, I'm happy with this in literal any deck. I don't think it needs to be a sacrifice at all.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. It's just a payoff if you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that's ever played against Blood Artists knows you need to kill the Blood Artist, so.
Yep. Score-wise, I'm really high on this card. I think this is like a 3 for me.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
For a 2-drop, yeah. I think that's pretty solid. All right, we have a 4-mana 3/2 with Flash, Fraxion Human Wizard. When it enters the battlefield, choose up to one counter-target spell, activated ability, or triggered ability. Its controller draws a card, or destroy another target creature or planeswalker. Its controller draws a card. Okay. So it's... I like that they get to draw a card, otherwise I think it'd be too strong, because you'd get the body plus the counter, which is like pretty insane card advantage there. So I think it's designed pretty well. I think this is a decent card. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that long ago we saw, what was the Flash counter creature in
The shark?
Flash?
Oh. Do you want the elf?
The green, blue one.
Yeah.
That card was very good, but it wasn't broken. Yeah, this card's okay. I mean, it's flexible, which is nice. It's card parity, not card advantage, but that's okay. Yeah, I think it's just its flexibility makes it good.
Yeah, well, I mean, counter spells are usually card parity, right? It's like 1-for-1. So this kind of keeps it 1-for-1 because you are getting the body. That was all I was saying, was that, like, I think that they did a good job with that design. There was also the shark that was like a flash creature that countered exactly a creature. And they didn't get to draw for that. But I disagree. I think that Simic Flash deck was really, really annoying. So I'm glad this is not doing that.
The deck was certainly annoying, but I think that was for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, that card was one of them. Certainly.
Yeah, it was.
Rating-wise, I like this. If I'm in exactly these colors, I don't think I'm first picking this and wanting to be in 2 colors for this, but I'm certainly playing this if I am in these colors and we end up going this route. Probably a 3/5 for me, maybe a 4. It's getting closer, but I think it's a 3/5.
Oh wow, you're way higher on this than I am.
Yeah.
I think it's like a 3.
Okay. I've seen so much like instant speed draw. Like, I don't know. I feel like getting to do these things on your opponent's turn is super valuable, and it's been getting stronger as we go. So I'm a little higher than you.
Yeah, I feel like both halves. I guess the flexibility is good. Both halves are just worse than a regular removal spell or a regular counter spell. But you do get both of them at once.
Garna, Blood Fist of Keld. We have colorless black, red for a human berserker. It's a 4/3 that says, whenever a creature you control dies, draw a card if it was attacking. Otherwise, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Okay. It's a hard to cast creature for the rate, but whenever your attacking creature dies, draw a card? That's pretty dope for what Rakdos wants to be doing in most decks.
Yeah, and in Rakdos also it has to be attacking, but doesn't have to die in combat, so you can just sort of suicide attack and then get a sacrifice trigger out of it to get a benefit as well. Or attack with a bunch of things and sacrifice the stuff that would die, and still get all the triggers out of this. Yeah, it's pretty good. And the ping damage is is a relevant bonus if it's not attacking.
Yep, agreed. And that's usually if they're removing it with like removal spells, so it's just a huge bonus. The rate isn't super aggressive, but it's a nice thing to play on turn 4 when you've already kind of curved out 2-3 and you want to attack that turn. You play this pre-combat and you get a bunch of extra card draw, or you make them have to take it, and it puts them in a really tough spot. I'm really high on this card, actually.
Yeah, I think this card is good. It's a little easy to kill at 4-3, but that's not the end of the world.
No, certainly not. What are you thinking rating-wise?
I think I have this as a 3.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. This one and like the last one, granted the last one was a rare. I feel like these signpost uncommons are kind of, they're very geared towards being the centerpiece of what those decks are trying to do, and they seem to do those things very well. So I tend to lean a little on the higher side. So I agree it's a 3, but I could definitely see it leaning a bit higher. Ivy Gleeful, Spell Thief, green and a blue for a legendary fairy rogue with flying. Is a 2/1 that says whenever you cast a spell that targets only a single creature other than this creature, you may copy that spell. The copy targets this creature. So pump spells, protection spells, something along those lines. At first I was like, removal? And then I saw, it targets this. Sad.
Yeah, that would be really bad.
Yeah. But, I mean, Simic wants to be ramping and doing some stuff, so sometimes that would be really cool. Plus, it's just a 2-mana, 2-powered flyer, which I'm in for.
Yeah, this feels like you're going to be relying on your opponent doing things that get you triggers, because Simic, at least as far as most Simic decks I've played, don't tend to have a lot of things that do this other than removal. And there's like no auras in this format, so... that being said,
auras even count?
Yes, it has the little reminder text on there about the copy of the aura spell becomes a token.
I see, you're right. Yeah, I mean, I have green, even in my Simic deck, I'll have some green pump spells or something like that, be fine. Fight spells won't work because you are targeting 2 things, but yes. I think this is a fine card, and it's a decent little flyer on its own, so I'm happy with this. I would give this a 3/5. I'm happy to build around it, put a few extra pump spells in my deck for it.
Yeah, see, that's why I have it lower. I've got it as a 2/5 because it's forcing me to build around it to make it good, and in a way that I don't want my Simic decks to be doing that.
Yeah, and when I say build around it, I'm talking about I usually play a pump spell or 2, and now I'm like, I will play 2, maybe 3, and like I think you'll just get enough incidental damage where I'll be happy with this. And just a 2-power, 2-mana flyer is already like pretty close to a 3 for me anyway. So
yes, yeah, I think I just view it as a 2-mana 2/1 flyer, nothing else.
Well, because this is the only creature in your deck, so you'll never have pump spells, right?
Well, if they target their own creatures with pumps, you still get it.
Great, even better.
But I'm relying on them to do it, so.
All right, Giora Ageless Inventor. Oh, Innovator. We've got a blue and a red for a 2/3 human artificer that says tap, put 2 counters on this. Then you may put an artifact card with mana value X or less from your hand onto the battlefield, where X is the number of counters on it. Great.
Yeah, don't care. In this set, there's so few artifacts that matter in this set.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, like, is this Ingenuity counter a type of counter, or is that just this card one and done name? Because it's an inventor. I think it's not a thing I've seen before. Right? Have we had?
Yeah, I don't think I've seen it before, but I mean, I don't think that matters too much.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Like, is this a thing that? Are there cards that put Ingenuity counters onto things? Probably not.
It's possible there's like some other commander, innovator, or inventor somewhere that uses Ingenuity counters, but I've never seen one.
Okay, so this is a good rate creature and nothing else. So you have to be exactly in this. You have to pick it up kind of late, and it's just a 2/5 because it's a above rate creature. Slightly tough to cast.
Yeah, I think I just have it as a 2 because it's above rate in total mana, but it is limiting and specific to cast.
Yeah, so usually a vanilla, straight vanilla, 2/3 for 3 is our 2 baseline, but they usually, even if it's not a good thing, they usually do something. Whereas this one doesn't feel like it's going to do anything. So you kind of dock it for it. Even though it has a mana reduction, it ends up being a wash.
Yeah.
Okay, I could see it too. Oh boy, I will let you take that one.
Joda the Unifier. It costs Wooburg. It's a 5/5 human wizard. Legendary creatures you control get +X/+X, where X is the number of legendary creatures you control. Whenever you cast a legendary spell from your hand, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a legendary non-land with lesser mana value. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order.
There is like 50 legendary creatures in this format.
Yeah,
so...
this card is really good. You just have to be able to cast it.
Yeah, I mean, and if you were going to be able to cast it, this is kind of the set with the domain stuff going around and the lands and the, there's a fair amount of like get lands out of your deck stuff. So it's possible. But I'm not saying I want to.
Yeah, you need to take this pretty early and then start forcing the dual lands.
And all of the legendary permanents and
Yeah.
And then what's going to happen is you're just not going to draw this and you'll be sad.
Yeah, although if your mana base isn't if you have a decent enough mana base and you're just playing a bunch of legendary things, that's fine because all of these cards have been at least playable we've seen so far, so you're not dipping too far down. Now, granted, they're not all going to work very well together.
Yes,
and
it's hard for me to imagine that your deck is got enough lands and enough legendaries and strong things to be good. I feel like you'll probably end up sacrificing a lot of better choices to take the land, and you'll end up with a bunch of dirtily legendary creatures or something. I don't know. It's a hyper build around for me, and I can't see the average deck. Certainly no average deck is going to want this. It's just a hyper build around.
Yeah, this is like a 1 or a 4, because if you get it to work, it's fantastic, but it's useless otherwise.
Yeah.
I'm wondering...
And even when you do try to do it, if you pack one, pick one this, I still feel like it could just be a disaster a good chunk of the time.
Yeah, I'm wondering if this format... I wonder if there's going to be a strategy that showed up in cons a lot, where you literally just spent most of pack 1 picking lands.
Yeah.
And then you could just pick up every gold card the rest of the way, pretty much.
Well, we'll have to see how quickly the lands go around, right? We're a little spoiled with Capenna when some of the packs had 2 or 3 lands in them. That's not going to be the case now, so we'll have to see how quickly they go.
Yeah, I just remember some cons decks where I had 11 of the enters battlefield tap 2 color lands, and could play every rare that got opened.
I could see a split rating for this, a 1 and a 4, but it's going to be a mess. All right.
Yeah.
King Darian, we have a 3 mana 2/3 human soldier. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. Now that's a lord. Holy smokes. 5 mana, put a +1/+1 counter on the king and create a 1/1 soldier token. Sacrifice this. Creature tokens you control gain hexproof and indestructible till end of turn.
So we had I think it was in Cold Snap, we had Darian, King of Keldor. And now we have King Darian the 48th. So does that mean they have 46 more they have to make?
That's a good question. But this card is fantastic.
Yeah. No, this card is very, very powerful. Selesnya seems to be getting a lot of toys in this set.
I like me some Selesnya. For me, this is like a 4.
Yeah.
You have to have some other creatures in play, but I don't think that's going to be hard with Selesnya. And he also makes them himself if need be.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, in addition to this making tokens himself, there's a lot of other white token makers, so the sacrifice ability will come up as well.
All right, you agree at a 4?
Yeah, I agree.
Likonos, Hand of Hatred. We have a 3 mana 1/3 legendary human shaman. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 2/1 elemental creature token with trample and haste. Sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step. You can tap, search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Activate only if 5 or more creatures died this turn. Huh. That's a lot of things that need to die, but I mean, it starts activating the turn you play it, so you're just attacking with a 2/1 on 3, and then it does it every turn, which is really annoying. It makes it hard for your opponent to race. It makes it hard for your opponent to have like small things.
Yeah, I think this card is fine. I think it's probably only actively good in decks with enough sacrifice synergy to just sacrifice that 2/1 for value, or something like you'd have to be 3 colors, but like the black-white uncommon, which just had a death trigger.
Well,
so at least you get that free trigger every turn.
It is also important to note that it says tap sacrifice if 5 or more creatures died this turn. It doesn't say that you control. So, a medium plus size combat phase where there is some blocking and trading happening, and you'll get a trigger out of this. I don't think a combat step in this creature heavy set where, there's so many tokens and so many other things, I don't think that'll be super uncommon, and it'll make blocking for your opponent really, really awkward because they're not going to want to trade. They're not going to want to eat your stuff necessarily, because if they eat too many things, then you can just get the best card in your deck. So I like it.
Yeah, I think the over-under on the number of times this happens in a game is 1.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a solid amount. And even on the turn, even in the games that it doesn't happen, it's probably partly because your opponent had to play awkwardly to prevent it from happening. Like they had to take a little extra damage or whatever to try to not kill your stuff. Or their stuff, right? Like double blocking, things like that become a lot more difficult when you have this on the battlefield.
You play games with way more creatures on the board than I do. There shouldn't even be 5 creatures on the battlefield at any one time.
That's true. You just have like your legacy, one of Delver, and that's it. But, those of us limited people in token generated formats, sometimes there's a lot of stuff. I've had some really, really big board states.
Yeah, I think we're relying a little too much on... There's only one color that's making a lot of tokens.
A lot of tokens, yes, but not a lot of creatures. Black has a ton of sacrifice stuff going on. It's going to be making a bunch of little fodder idiots.
Yeah, I think... I'd be curious to go back to... I don't know every set plays differently, but to a bunch of sets and see how many times 5 creatures die in a turn that doesn't have a Board Wrath being cast. It's not that often.
I agree. And I think the threat of that activation is also relevant. Like, you're right. It might not happen. But it also, because it didn't happen, a lot of times you get to just attack with a couple extra things for free, and your opponent will not be incentivized to make reasonable trades or blocks sometimes, and that's valuable. And at the end of the day, you're still getting a free 2/1 to attack with or sack when necessary every turn, which is also valuable. Like, there's a lot of little things here adding up.
I think the 2/1 is valuable. I don't think the bottom ability is valuable.
Okay. Well, so my rating on this is going to be... I'm leaning pretty high. I like this card a lot. It feels like it's doing exactly what these colors really want to be doing for me. So I feel like it's a bit of an enabler. I'm going to give it like a 3 or a 3/5.
Yeah, this is like a 2/5 unless I've got a lot of sacrifice outlets, and then I'll make it a 3.
All right. I don't think there's any world where I will be sacrifice outlets sacking 5 of my own creatures in a turn. I feel like I will do it more in combat, but...
Oh, yeah, not for that portion, just because it makes sure that the 2/1 is valuable even if it can't attack.
Myria, Scholar of Antiquity. We have a 3-mana 3/3 legendary elf artificer. Tap an untapped non-token artifact you control, add a forest, and then you can tap 2 untapped non-token artifacts you control. Exile a top card of your library. You may play it this turn. Little card draw there. It's a decent rate. 3-mana 3/3. No treasures or artifacts, really, right? Like, not a ton, right?
There are a bizarre number of like artifacts matter cards that we're seeing for a set with only 14 total artifacts in it.
Yes.
Bunch of which are rare or mythic. Like,
and a lot of them are not good.
Yeah, I don't really understand that. It's not an artifact set, so it just seems weird to have these artifact cards.
But we're getting an artifact set, right? So this is the first set of the new standard, right? Like this is the very first set with the smallest amount of cards we'll see in standard. So as we go and we get, what was that silly set called?
The Brothers War, the next one?
No, not the Brothers War. It's the one after that. The
March of the Machines or something?
Yeah. So, I'm feeling like this is the build up for the artifacts to be a viable deck in the March of the Machines deck. If they give it all to us in one set, that limited set will just be overrun with one archetype. So I kind of like that they're kind of peppering it in where it's like, well, this is not really super relevant, but it's still a fine body. Maybe you have one or two artifacts with some synergy, maybe not. And that's kind of where I want these things to be. But I'm assuming they're going to come together and make a reasonable standard deck when we get to March of the Machines.
Yeah, I mean, they've got 3 artifact sets pretty much coming up. I feel like you could just spread them out over there without feeling like you're wasting a slot here. But, I mean, that's fine. It's a rare. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like R&D has a plan, and I know they are a lot smarter than me. So there's a reason it's here, I'm sure.
Their plans and artifact sets don't mix very well historically.
That said, it's a decent rate, and you might end up with an artifact or two, so it's fine. It's like a 2/5.
Yeah, it's a 2/5.
All right, a 4-mana 2/4 with flying and domain. I just dropped a bunch of stuff on the floor. I'm very clumsy. Whenever this card deals combat damage to a player, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of basic lands among land types you control. Put up to one of them onto the top of your library and the rest on the bottom in a random order. If there are 3 or if there are 5 basic land among lands you control, draw a card. It's still a 4-mana 2/4 flyer that gets to filter and scry a bunch. I'm into that.
Yeah, this card's fine no matter what number of basic land types you have, since it's going to be at least 2. And then if you are in that domain deck, every once in a while, or once every handful of games, you'll get to draw a card. Sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. And even if I'm just putting a land at the bottom, keeping this card on top, putting a land at the bottom, keeping this card on top, it's a lot of value that adds up over time. So I'm really happy with this card. I feel like I'm hesitant to give it too high just because the power on it isn't there, but the value is. So it feels like a 3/5 for value, but it's just a 3, I think.
Yeah, I've got it as a 3.
But the value feels premium. All right, we have a 5-mana 2 blue and a red for a 5/4 legendary Efreet wizard that says you may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash. That's sweet. And whenever this Storm Runner attacks, you may pay 2 if you do. When you cast your next instant or sorcery this turn, you may copy it and choose new targets.
Yeah, this card's good. I don't think it's great, but sorcery spells at instant speed is nice, and it's a big enough body that attacking with it isn't, suicidal.
I wish it was a 5-mana 4/5.
Agreed.
It's a little fragile, I feel like, and I feel like it's just going to be kind of sitting back on D so you can cast the spells with it at flash. And if that's the case, I'd rather just have a 3-mana 2/3 or something that was sitting back. I could cast it a little early, but I guess it's fine.
Yeah, and even if you're trading it off, you do still get that 1 trigger. If you pay the 2.
Yeah, and you have to have a relevant spell at the time.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, this doesn't feel super strong. It does kind of feel like what they're trying to do. It is kind of a signpost uncommon, but to me, it doesn't feel as strong as the other ones.
Yeah, agreed. It's not as good as the 3-mana blue-red card we already saw, the flyer.
Yes, that was so good. What are you thinking rating-wise?
This is somewhere between a 2/5 and a 3 for me.
I'm right in the same spot. I couldn't really decide. It feels like a 2/5, but I feel like it'll play better. But
yeah, and it feels a little bit like blue-red is gonna. You're gonna be able to attack with this, get the trigger, and then play a sorcery speed removal spell and kill 2 of their blockers, so they can't kill it anyway. Or a sorcery speed or some sort of bounce spell to get rid of 2 things. So, your whole deck is going to be spells.
hopefully. I mean, just be careful not to fill your deck full of bad spells.
Yeah.
All right, the next one is a Primeval Warden, 4 mana for a 3/4 with reach. And it says, if a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. When you do, create a 1/1 green sapperling. You could pay 1 green, sacrifice a sapperling. This gets +2/+2 till end of turn. You can pay 1 and a black to sacrifice 2 sapperlings and draw a card. Wow. This is awesome.
Yeah, this card is great.
I love this card a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of combining two of the cards we saw in original Dominaria, at least the abilities, right? You've got the Thallid that sacrifices sapperling or creatures to get +2/+2, and another Thallid that sacrifices creatures to draw a card.
Yep.
But in this case, it's making them as well. Yeah, you have to sacrifice 2 sapperlings, but instead of 1 for that. But you're getting both effects on the same card at a good rate.
Yeah, there was the Thallid that made them for mana as well.
Yeah.
Like this one, obviously you can't make them on command like you could, but it does make them. So it is just kind of like a hodgepodge of all the Thallid sacky things in the Dominaria set. I agree with that. For me, this is like it's not quite there as far as like big power, game-ending power, but this can win games. Certainly. If they don't answer this, you're going to get a lot of incremental value over time. This feels like a 4 for me.
Yeah, I've got it as a 4. This card's really good.
All right, we have a queen, green, white for an elf noble. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of creatures you control. And then if one or more creature tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus a 1/1 white soldier token are created instead. So it just makes an extra creature.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, this card's good. More good Selesnya stuff. It's dynamic power and toughness, so that could be... You got to be a little bit careful on getting this into combat with other things dying. And
there was a creature, Shalai? No, Shalai was the angel. What was this one? Shauna.
Shauna, yeah.
Shauna she was a 1 white and a green with the exact same first clause where it was like XX, where X is creatures. And so that was just fine. We're tacking on an extra planes here to generate that token whenever you have token generation. And whether that's going to be relevant or not is going to be based on your deck. And you have to have some token generation, which a lot of the white stuff does just randomly has stuff stapled onto it that makes a creature. So it's probably going to come in handy just incidentally with a couple of cards in your deck. So very playable, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting to see I was just looking at Shauna to see the change in templating. Shauna was at a 0/0 that got +1/+1 for each creature you control.
Okay.
As opposed to just being a star that's equal. No, I'm curious. I wonder why. I guess it's different. I guess it changes what the card is in the graveyard and in your deck, what its power and toughness are.
Fair.
Think I would... I guess, yeah, it's going to be context dependent. I was going to say I think I'd rather have Shauna, but with the amount of tokens in white we have seen, and obviously this is going into Selesnya, maybe I like this better specifically in this format.
Yeah, agreed. I think that in the last Dominaria, I'd rather have the other one, and in this format, I'd probably rather have this one. I think this is like a 3.
Yeah. It's
with some upside in the, hyper synergistic deck. All right. Rada the War Leader, 4 mana for a 3/3 with Domain. Whenever it becomes tapped, another target creature you control gets +X/+X, where X, until end of turn, where X is the number of basic lands among land types you control. I like the other Rada better. Can we go back to that?
Yes, the other Rada is definitely better. But I believe the other Rada was rare.
She was, but it was so good. This one's like, it's a slightly overcosted body. It pumps something else, not itself, so you have to have something else. Plus, also, it leaves this vulnerable to death. So, this is like a fine hyper aggro card in like aggro Gruul, but if your deck is like at all slow,
Yeah, it's kind of cute with Enlist.
Ooh, that's true. You could enlist this creature and it becomes tapped and does the thing. That is cute.
Yeah.
I will give it that cuteness, but I'm still salty that like one of my favorite cards of Dominaria is now a poop.
Can I interest you at least in the flavor text? Because that's pretty good.
Enough warm up, I'm coming for you. Why is it good flavor text?
I don't know, just like this elf, like, threatening the giant living
Bug
centipede
lady?
children bug lady.
She's poop now. I am sad.
Not
I'm
sure
going
I'd
to give
go
this a 2-5.
Yeah, I think it's a 2-5. So not sure I'd go as far as saying poop, but it is underwhelming.
It is poop compared to her previous self. She really let herself go.
And
Raph, I loved the original Raph in the other Dominaria. I don't know if that was the original or not, but it was very good. 1 white and a blue for a 1/3. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may tap 2 untapped creatures you control. If you do draw a card, for 5 mana, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain Vigilance until end of turn. That's 2 very different abilities, and I like them both. Both pretty expensive, tough to cast, but I'm into it.
Yeah, it's interesting that a lot of the multicolor cards we've been seeing are trying to do like one thing that both colors are trying to do, and this is just taking one piece from each color.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the blue white is according to Marrow trying to go wide, and it's sorcery spells are a theme of blue tokens, sure, but this is a combination of abilities I don't know if we've ever seen before on the same creature.
Yeah, and I like them both, and his rate is fine. 2 mana, 1/3, and like late game mana sink. End step draw spell, draw some extra cards. I don't think tapping 2 untapped creatures is gonna be super hard. You're not really attacking with this one anyway, so it doesn't say 2 other creatures. So I don't think it's gonna be tough to activate the first clause, and the last clause is just nice and handy to have around, tacked onto something relevant. So I'm much higher on this. I think Raph isn't as cool, but didn't really let himself go in comparison to Rada.
Yeah, I find it interesting when like another printing of the same creature somehow went from having flying to no longer being able to fly. Like, do you forget?
Well,
that seems kind of weird.
Maybe there's like some anti-flying force field, or
yeah,
I don't know. Was he flying on a bird then, and he lost? Maybe his bird died. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he's a human wizard, so he was using spells to fly. So it's not like an angel that all of a sudden forgot how to fly. But,
correct. Yeah, an angel without flying would be weird. But maybe he ran out of spell slots for the day because he's a D&D character, and we're moving on. I like this card a fair amount. Like, I think that the value is very high. Value 3.5, curve, playability, power 3.
Yeah, I've got it as a 3.
Okay, 4 mana for a 3/3 Vigilance and Ward 2. Other zombies you control have Vigilance. Whenever another legendary creature you control dies, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's not a legendary, and it's a 2/2 black zombie in addition to its other colors and types. Cool. There's a lot of incidental legendaries that are going to get hit from this, and it's a 3/3 Vigilance for 3. Okay, and it creates more bodies that also have Vigilance. This is cool.
Yeah, this card is fine. There's not a lot of zombies in this set, but it makes its own, so.
Yeah. It's a little slow.
Yeah.
It's a 3/3 for 4, but it's got a keyword. I mean, I think this is a well-rounded card. I'm not going into this color for this card, but happy to play it.
Yeah, I think it's like a 3.
Yeah, I mean, with some synergy with legendary creatures, I feel like we're giving it a 3 with the idea that you will have some, just incidentally.
Yes.
There's so many.
Yeah,
There's like 50. But if you happen to be in these colors and you happen to have a high quantity of those, I could see bumping it to a 3/5.
Yeah, I can see that.
All right, Rith. Primeval, the liberated Primeval. We have a 2 red, green, and a white for a flying and ward dragon. It's a 5/5. Other dragons you control have ward 2. At the beginning of your end step, if you control a planeswalker an opponent controls, if a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls was dealt excess damage this turn, create a 4/4 dragon with flying. Cool. That is a lot of text, but it's a 5 mana 5/5 flying ward, so it's like great, and also can just make more stuff. And because it has ward, it protects itself, so I'm down to give this a 5. It's pretty close.
That ability's not going to come up very often, right?
At the beginning of your end step, if a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls was dealt excess damage. So, like, if you're in green and you're attacking with, like, a 4/4 or whatever, and...
okay, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
If they double block it, right, you can just choose to do all 4 damage to the one creature.
Yeah, I was thinking in my head kind of like the red spells that deal excess damage to the player, like that it almost had to have trample. But
no.
It doesn't. Yeah,
so they can't chump block your creatures. They can't double block your creatures. They literally can't do anything unless it's a dead even trade, or their stuff has to be bigger.
Yeah. I just misread that. Yeah, this is a 5.
Awesome. Rivaz of the Claw, 3 mana, 3/3 with Menace. Tap, add 2 mana of any combination of colors. Spend this only to cast a dragon creature. Once during each of your turns, you may cast a dragon creature spell from your graveyard. Hoya! Whenever you cast a dragon spell from your graveyard, it gains, when this creature dies, exile it. I mean, I don't know how many dragons there are now, but, like, there were a couple of, like, little dweeby ones in red, which I was fine with.
Yeah, I think there are 3 total. In this set, there's the one we just saw, Rith. There's Dragon Whelp. And there's the Shivan, the Dragon Hydra.
That's a mythic.
Yeah.
Okay, there's not so many, but like the one dragon was a common, right? Or an uncommon?
Yeah, it's 2 mythics and an uncommon, it looks like.
So if you have like 2 of the uncommons, this becomes pretty sweet. And even still, it's a 3 mana, 3/3 with Menace, so it's just fine.
Yeah.
And if you get 2 of the uncommons in your deck, let's go. I'm into it. So I guess we have to dock it pretty heavily just because there isn't dragon support here, but I think it's still probably a 3.
Yeah, I think it's a 3. It's cute with that Dragon Whelp, right? Because you can excess pump the Dragon Whelp and let it die, and then you can just replay it the next turn.
Yeah, I mean, you can only do it once, but yeah.
Yeah, true.
But I'm still fine with that.
Yeah.
Okay, it's still 3/3 for 3, so yeah, it's fine. Rana, Shieldred's Faithful, colorless, blue, black for a legendary human wizard. It's a 3/4 that says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, each opponent loses a life. Whenever you cast Rana Shieldred's Faithful from your graveyard by discarding 2 cards in addition to paying its other mana cost. I like that late in the game. I could see just holding on to some excess lands.
Yeah, I think this card is fine. That ability's pricey, but yeah, eventually you're gonna draw stuff you don't care about.
Yeah. And it's like an okay rate that like pings your opponent. I kind of like 3/4s generally for 4 mana. It's a little tough to cast, but I still think that's okay. It's probably 3 for me.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a 3, but closer to a 2/5 than a 3/5.
Yeah. QQ, just so you guys know, someone's noting about that dragon card that they did hint that there are more dragons coming, so it'll be more relevant. But just as a heads up, this set review is geared exactly towards limited. So whether or not those cards are coming or not doesn't make our ratings any more or less relevant. We did talk about it a little bit with the artifacts just because it seemed super out of place, that it just didn't make any sense. Incidental dragon stuff definitely makes sense just because EDH and all, constructed stuffs. But for now, that has very little interaction for what we're trying to do. Oh my god, please take this one.
Rulikmon's Warren Chief. 1 red-green-green for a legendary goblin, 3/3 with Menace. Whenever it attacks, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land, you may put it onto the battlefield tapped. If you didn't put a card on the battlefield this way, make a 1/1 goblin.
I like goblins. I like making them.
Yep. This still doesn't make the Goblin Lord good.
Agreed. I mean, it doesn't make the Goblin Lord bad, but
no, the Goblin Lord made itself bad.
Yes. Yeah, this creature is fine on its own. It's a 4 mana 3/3 menacer that makes some bodies in a bit of a go wide situation. It's a little overcosted for, the body itself. We've seen 3/3 menacers for much cheaper in this format already. So, not in love with it, but it does make some stuff and gets possibly lands off the top, right?
Yeah, I mean, we just saw 3 mana, 3/3 menace, but that wasn't rare, and it did basically nothing because of the lack of dragons. This costs 1 more, but it's an uncommon, and it does something, so that's probably about the same for me. It's like a 3.
Yeah, I like that. It does cost 1 more, but it does more, so I think it's a wash.
Agreed.
Here we go. Here's the Shauna we were talking about from earlier. This card actually looks sweet. So she used to be just an uncommon. She actually got an upgrade, whereas a lot of the other ones, like Rada, got huge downgrades. For a green, a white, and a blue, we have a legendary human warrior with lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, you may pay X. If you do, draw X cards. X can't be greater than the amount of life gained. It's a 3/3. I love this card. This is probably my favorite card of the set.
I think this card's very good. There's not much life link support, or life gain support in this set, but it does it on its own, so.
Yeah, there's some incidental drains. I mean,
yeah,
you'd have to be in the sort of domain deck, but they had the little one that says when your creature dies, you gain a life or whatever, or you know what I mean? Like whenever you play a creature, gain, or I wonder what other life gain, just little incidental triggers there would be that wasn't super hefty.
You had the 1 blue card that had a white kicker cost. To gain life. But yeah, it did seem like a decent amount of life gain was in black white, or you had a kicker but it was on a red spell. So.
Yeah, wasn't there also a bird that just when you gained life, you gained 1 more, and it itself could gain life somehow? Am I thinking something crazy?
No, it definitely had the second clause. I just don't remember if it gained life itself. I mean, there's a bird that's 2/1, gains 2 life. There's an Oblivion Ring that gains 2 life.
Here's a life linking 2/3. It's an uncommon. A 2 mana 2/3 uncommon with lifelink. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, which we wouldn't be able to kick in these colors, return a creature from your graveyard to your hand. So that card's just dope, but it's just a 2 mana life linking 2/3. It's an uncommon though. We're looking for more common answers to do this, reasonably regularly. When this becomes tapped, gain 1 life scry. It's a 2 mana 2/1 at common. That's the combo here, right? You just attack with this, then you can pay 1 with Shauna and draw. And that's assuming your 3/3 for 3 with lifelink can't just attack reasonably safely in the early game to draw extra anyway.
Yeah, exactly. The card's fine. Or better than fine. It's very good, but there's not quite as much support in these specific colors as you might see in some other
life gain. Yeah, there's no life gain deck here, but I don't think this needs a life gain deck to still be very good. You only need a couple of triggers off of it.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And yeah, I love this card. Even though I don't think it's the most powerful card in the world, this is my favorite. These are the types of decks I like to play. Creatures with value. And so for me, this is a 4.
Yeah. I think it's a 4, although I really only like the blue part of this card. The creature part can go away.
Yanks hates fun. Okay, we've got Soul the Tainted, 2 blue, black, red for an elemental demon. 5/5. At the beginning of your end step, you may choose 1 that hasn't been chosen. Draw a card, or each opponent loses 2 life. You gain 2 life. This deals 3 damage up to 1 target creature or planeswalker, or then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. Exile this, then return it. So once it does that, then the whole cycle resets, I guess.
Yeah, you can do everything again.
Yeah, but you can't attack with it that turn, which is interesting.
You want to talk about cards that got an upgrade or downgrade. This card, Sulkanar, was originally printed in Legends. It had the same mana cost, was a 5/5, and all it did then was it had Swamp Walk, and it gained 1 life each time a black spell is cast. That's a good point. We both misread this card. The last one gives it to your opponent.
Oh! Okay. We did read that incorrectly.
Yeah.
Good job, chat. That's why we do these live.
I just kind of figured since it was a mythic, the last one would let you reset, not.
Yeah, I assumed the last one was
else.
a reset and doubled as a okay, they now have a turn where it can't attack you. Whereas that was the drawback, but the drawback is they just freaking get it. Okay, I'm kind of off this creature.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was gonna say I think it's okay, but it's not. I
thought it was insane. Now I think it's borderline playable.
Yeah, I mean, you are playing this in Grixis, so you have black-red, so maybe you can get 3 triggers and then sacrifice it.
Yeah, and I guess if you're hitting them is this at the end step? So you get to hit them 3 times with this and run it in, which they might just not be able to survive after that anyway. You draw a card, you drain 2, you kill their creature, you hit them 3 times, maybe that's enough to kill them.
Yeah, and then you can sacrifice it, you can bounce it, you can get rid of it to bone shards and kill one of their things.
Yeah, we're still playing this, but it went from insane to okay, be a little scared.
Yeah, I'm nervous if I'm playing this card and I don't have a way to prevent my opponent from getting it already in my hand, or at least know I have a bunch of them in my deck. Yes,
definitely agree. The fact that it draws also helps, though, right? So you actually get several draws to get that to work. You can kill their blocker the first turn, hit them with it. They might just be dead. That is a lot of value over 3 turns before you have to worry about this. So this feels like a 4. No, it feels like a 4.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you just ignored the last clause and you did the first 3 and then you couldn't do anything anymore, then it would be a 5.
Yes. Or if it flickered it.
Well, that would be absurd. Yeah.
Yeah, then it's stupid. But But I wanted to have a drawback that isn't giving it to them. Then I'd be even happy. I don't need it to just not do anything else. I'm happy for it to have a drawback. I don't know, it becomes a 2/2 or something. It gets -3/-3 is the last clause. Yeah, put 3 -1/-1 counters on it is the final clause that you have to choose.
I'd honestly be okay with this card if it was the last one was the 4th one you had to choose was sacrifice Solkanar and another creature you control if you can't lose 5 life or something.
Yeah. Giving it to my opponent makes me sad, so we're going to give it a 4. It's going to take a huge dock. Soul of Windgrace, 4 mana, 5/4. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you may put a land card from your graveyard onto the battlefield tapped under your control. You can pay a green, discard a land, gain 3. You can pay 1 and a red, discard a land, draw. You can pay 3, discard a land. It gains indestructible until end of turn, tap it. Cool. So you'd never play your land ever again. You just discard them and then bring them back into play when he attacks?
Yeah.
And you could do these things in multiples, right? Which is cool.
Yeah.
It's a fine card.
Yeah, this card's good.
And I like that you can cast it the turn it happens, right? So you can discard a land, draw a card kind of deal. The turn that you play it, it is a little expensive, but 6 mana is reasonable.
Or 4 mana.
No, but you're waiting.
Yeah.
In order for us to give it that juiced rating, you kind of need it to do a little something the turn it comes into play. And I'm wondering how unrealistic is 6 mana to draw a card when you play that. If I have another 4-drop, I might be willing to save my Mythic Bomb till turn 6 to ensure that I get that value.
Oh, agreed. Yeah.
And there's always a good chance that they just remove your 4-drop anyway, so then you kind of get to bait that out. Sometimes curving out with your Mythic is not ideal. So I'm willing to give this a nice little bump. It's not doing a ton if you don't have lands to discard. So it's probably a 4 just because it is a little slow.
Yeah, I mean, you do get to steal their lands, but their lands probably aren't ending up in the graveyard very often unless they also have one of these. So
it's from the yard. But yes, the idea is that you have to have lands to discard to the ability to then get back from the yard to play onto the battlefield. So you still need to keep drawing the lands. So it's going to give you the win over time. So that's sort of the difference between our 4s and our 5s. The 4s are cards that can win the game if your opponents don't have the answer, should you be allowed to sit on it and reap the benefits of that long-term value. Versus a 5 where it's like, oh, you played a Chandra that wiped the board and gave you 7 more creatures ahead of your opponent. Even if they kill a Chandra, you're still massively ahead now. So this is not going to give you that feel, but it will still win you the game should left alone. So I think it's like a 4 for me.
Yeah, and I just took a quick look. There are no lands in this set that naturally go to the graveyard. Like, there's no Evolving Wilds or
that would be sweet.
Something like that.
But I still like it. Pitch your land, draw a card, no punishment. I'm down for that.
Yeah, I'm with you.
2 mana, 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, choose a card type other than land. Spells you cast of the chosen type cost 1 less to cast. For 3 mana, you can exile it, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control to begin the next end step. So it protects itself, and also you can make your spells cheaper depending on what you need at the time, which is pretty cool. This is a on-curve card that helps ramp you a little bit, which is neat.
Yeah, it doesn't make creatures cheaper, which is unfortunate.
Oh, so other than creature or land. I just read land. Yeah, that is unfortunate.
And blue-white, in this set at least, is trying to go wide, so it will play a fair number of creatures.
Yeah.
The card's fine, though. It's just a bear with a decent amount of upside, and that not only can you reset the type, but it can also just protect itself.
2/5?
Yeah, I think it's a 2/5.
Obviously, it's got some upside should you have a lot of instants or sorceries or artifacts or whatever. Oh, this is one of my favorite cards from the original Dominaria. Let's see if I hate it or love it still. I love the art. We're off to a good start. Green, green, blue for a legendary Merfolk Druid. It's a 3/3. Land creatures you control have flying. Okay. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if you control 7 or more lands, up to 1 target land you control becomes a 3/3 elemental creature token with haste. Period. Not till end of turn, not anything else. It's still a land. Yes, please. I still like the other one better. I loved playing a land, getting a card, and a life was really sweet. But this is a really cool late game win con. It's just a 3/3 for 3.
Yeah, I definitely like the other one better.
Same.
This card's fine, though. It's fine rate. Sometimes 3/3 lands aren't great because they just get bricked by 3/4, but this gives them flying, so that helps. Yeah, I mean, even on turn, say 10, because you're probably not hitting your 7th land on turn 7 necessarily. The 3/3 flyer is still relevant, so.
Yeah, and it's still just a 3/3 for 3 that then needs to be off the board before we get there. Like, I've seen people play turn 1 Dragon Master Outcast, and I'm just sitting there like, oh boy, how many lands do they have? And I'm just like counting their lands every turn. Even if they don't play a land, I'm still recounting them, right? Like, there is still this sense of like, this crappy 1-drop or crappy 3-drop curve filler will eventually kill me. So it is interesting. It also kind of like, your 3-drop is now eating up removal because they don't want it to get to the 7th land, meaning that your dragon idiot is fine, right? So it has a lot of value in the inevitability of it.
I agree with all of that, except who are you playing that plays Dragon Master Outcast on turn 1? You never play that card that early.
I definitely have in limited.
That sits in my hand until I know I can get that 7th land.
A lot of times you just have to cast it. You might not live that long.
It's a 1 mana 1/1. It doesn't do anything.
In limited, sometimes you can kill people with 1 mana 1/1s, okay? And sometimes you just gotta cast stuff.
I don't think I've ever played that card without at least 6 lands on the battlefield.
I definitely have. Not often, but like sometimes you just gotta do it, man. And besides, you're not supposed to have creatures in your deck anyway.
Well, that's what I put in. That's what I put in my deck because I only have to play 1.
What is the rating on this card?
I think it's a 3.
Okay, I can see that. A 3, it's a little tough to cast. It's going to going to depend on a little bit, too, on how good the ramp is in green this format. I remember seeing a fair amount, but there was not a lot that I liked unless I was in the domain deck, so we'll see.
I will say that's one 3-drop where I don't mind that it's hard to cast because I don't want to be playing it early anyway.
All right. Tori, 4 mana for a knight. It's a 3/3 with Vigilance and Trample. When it attacks, all other attacking creatures you control get +1/+1 till end of turn. Other red attacking creatures you control gain Trample. Untap each other white attacking creature. They basically get pseudo-vigilance. Great. This card seems fine. I mean, it's only a 3/3 for 4 mana, but it's
got 2 keywords and then an ability. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. What is the rating on this card?
I think it's a 3.
This one's a tough one.
I could see it playing better than that, because red-white is, you're probably going to have tricks, you're probably going to get a lot of value out of the ability.
Sure strike type stuff go real well with this. Yeah, I can see this playing like a 3/5 as like the signpost thing that's doing everything I want my go wide decks to be doing and just helps my pump spells an insane amount. So we're happy with this. Yeah, this is fine. I'm gonna say a 3 with some upside.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Tura, Sky Knight, 2 white, blue, blue for a flying 3/3 that says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, create a 1/1 white soldier token. I love it.
Yep, here's exactly what was written about. Blue-white trying to go wide with spells.
Yep. This is an awesome card. I'm very, very into this. Now, you have to have instants or sorceries, which a lot of the creature-heavy decks don't really like doing, but you'll have enough incidental ones to make a few triggers from this pretty powerful, and you want to go wide here. So, rating-wise, is this another 3 for you?
I think I've got this a little higher. This is 3/5.
Same, actually. Yeah, I agree. I was leaning a fair amount higher on this. I think this one is worth the extra mana.
Agreed.
Not close.
It's interesting that we just saw a 3-mana 3/3 with double color, 3-mana 4-mana 3/3 double color, 5-mana 3/3 double color, and the most expensive one is the best.
Yep. And it's not particularly close for me.
Yeah, I agree.
Spawn of Turg?
It says Turg, but it's Turd. That's what everyone's going to call it.
Spawn of Turg, black, black, green, for a frog beast that says its power is equal to the number of land cards in your graveyard at the beginning of your upkeep. Look at the top card of your library. Put that card into your graveyard. Wait. You may put it into your graveyard. Great. I was like, what? And then for black and green, you can sacrifice a land, gain 2 life. Okay, well, I mean, it's kind of nice for like late game filtering in the top of your deck.
So you get this, and you get Soul of Windgrace, and you sacrifice a land, gain 2 life, and then you attack and get the land back.
Yep. Aren't we?
Nope.
It was in these colors, right? It was green, black, red.
It was junked, yeah.
Okay, that's sweet.
I mean, it only requires an uncommon and a mythic, but...
Yeah, so you could sacrifice, discard the land, get it back with it into play, and then sack it with this to then get it back with the... Yeah, okay, I'm into that. It's fine. Rating-wise, I'm a little underwhelmed with this. I mean, you have to have a lot of synergy. This is a huge build-around for me.
Yeah, I've got this at like a 2/5.
Yeah, I have it at like a 2 with some upside. It's going to be nice to be able to pitch your excess lands to gain life, which is kind of cool. But, like, how good is that? If it was like draw, great. I'm into it. But it's a little on the slow side. And then getting to put those lands from the top of your library into your graveyard in the late game is nice too. But that's not necessarily what I want my 3-drops to be doing anyway. So...
Yeah, I mean, Surveil 1 every turn is pretty solid. But, yeah, I think I'm still underwhelmed as a whole.
I will let you take this one.
Vohar Vodalian Desecrator, blue-black for a 1/2 legendary Phyrexian Merfolk Wizard. Tap, draw a card, then discard a card. If you discarded an instant or sorcery card this way, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. Pay 2 and sacrifice this. You may cast target instant or sorcery spell from your graveyard this turn. If it would be put into your graveyard, exile it. Instead, activate only as a sorcery.
I think I don't really like its excess abilities. Like, in a pinch, sure. Like, the final song of this is to, like, recast your best removal spell late in the game. I'm okay with that. But I don't really want to, like, be discarding my spells to draw a blank off the top.
Yeah, the only way I'm happy with doing that is if I'm, like, playing this to dig for land.
Yeah. What I want this to be is I want this to be a filler that, like, filters away the extra lands, and then at the end, middle end of the game, it's like, okay, I don't need this anymore. I've gotten, like, 4 or 5 extra cards with the value off of it. I'm just going to recast my, like, premium removal spell.
Yeah. All that being said, 2 mana tap to loot. A 2 mana creature that taps to loot is just good.
Yes, I agree.
So just the rest of it doesn't really add much.
Exactly. I was going to say, like, it feels like a lot of text for something I'm just not very happy to do. I'm pretty happy with 2 mana loot. Tap to loot, no additional cost. I'm happy here. The rest of the text, it adds a lot that I'm not really happy to pay for, if that makes sense.
You play like a 2 HG deck with this and like 2 copies of this and like 17 spells and ping them for 2 each turn.
Fair. It does say each opponent, which I can't wait to play. 2HG, my favorite format. Rating-wise, what is this, like a 2/5?
Yeah, I think it's a 2/5.
Great. Czar, this was one of our intro video cards. It is a 5-mana 4/4 that says whenever this becomes tapped, put a +1/+1 counter on it for each creature you control with toughness less than the number of basic land types. Oh, wait. I feel like I messed this up.
Yeah. Put a +1/+1 counter on every creature you control that has toughness less than the number of basic land types.
Great. I was like, huh? Yeah, so all of you, if you have 3, all of your 2/2s will get a counter. If you have 4, all of your 3/3s. So he himself will not likely get counters, but this is still an okay card. It's kind of 5 mana for a 4/4 is pretty underwhelming with no keywords, so it kind of really only belongs in the domain deck, but I could see it as a curve filler in a pinch.
Yeah, I think if you're particularly in green-white, if you're playing it and can get to 3 colors reasonably, you're going to have a lot of 1/1 tokens that this can upgrade slowly to 3/3s, which matter. But this has to live, and
you have to have those tokens. Like, if you're, green isn't the other token generator. And I saw a lot of, like, 1/3s and weird stuff in green, so you've got to have the synergy for it, I think.
Yeah, I think the card's kind of underwhelming, but there are decks where it's going to be pretty powerful. Even just turning your 1/1 white tokens into 2/2s.
Yep, and if you've got that, then I would just run him as, like, a 2/5. If you don't have 1/1 tokens, then I would not run him.
Unless you're in the domain deck.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed. So for me, this feels like a split rating. It's like a 1 or a 3/5, actually. Like, if it has a good chance of, like, really getting these triggers, then I'm very, very happy to play this.
Yeah, I don't think I'd ever put it all the way at 1, because 5 mana 4/4 is bad, but it's not like you can't put it in your deck.
I feel like it won't make the cut.
I think it
cards.
Well, I think it won't make the cut most of the time, but I just think that's more of a 1/5.
Sure. Ones and 1/5s are really not making the cut for me, so.
Sure.
All right. Zur, we have a white, blue, black 1/4 flyer. Enchant creature you control. Enchantment creatures you control have Death Touch, Lifelink, and Hexproof. I got very confused for a second. And then for 1 and a white, target non-aura enchantment you control becomes a creature in addition to its other types and has base power and toughness equal to its mana value.
Yeah, this card's terrible for limited.
I keep trying to figure out what exactly it does. It itself is not an enchantment creature, so it doesn't get these keywords.
No, it has nothing in the set works with that.
Yeah, I mean, it itself has flying, But yeah, it doesn't do anything else. So it's a 3-mana 1/4 flyer.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, I guess if I'm in those colors, I would play it, but I'm not going to really want to.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of enchantments in the set, and a lot of the ones that there are, you don't want to turn into creatures. Like you don't want to turn your removal enchantments into creatures because it's easier to kill them.
Yep.
Sagas, you can get a couple turns, but then they're just going to die when you sacrifice them.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, this just feels like a 2 if you're in exactly these 3 colors, but it's not like I want to be in these 3 colors, so I'm more likely just to be in a 2-color deck, and I'm certainly not going to be splashing this. But I would play a 3-mana 1/4 flyer, even though it is kind of hard to cast, just if I just happen to be in this deck.
Yeah, I agree.
2.
The only thing I'm trying to check quickly. It doesn't really say. I was looking at the release notes, but I guess if you turn something into a creature, an enchantment, then it gets those abilities. Because it's weird because they're enchantments and creatures, but enchantment creature is an actual thing, and I don't know if it's the same.
Yeah.
I assume it is.
It is. I think so. That's exactly how that works. That's what I thought. I didn't know that there would be very many enchantments we'd want to turn into a creature. Like, I don't think my aura, my white removal spells, I'm not really interested in risking that. And then anything else I'm not really interested in playing. So, meh.
Yeah, I guess now that I think about it a little more, it's not that hard. It actually is kind of hard to kill them because they have hexproof.
Yeah, that's true. Hexproof is nice.
But only until this dies. Then once this dies, it doesn't have hexproof anymore.
Yes, it's still very awkward, so I'm just going to give this a 2.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I guess that's nice about it now that I'm reading that a little more is that you can make like your Oblivion Ring a creature in response to a spell, and it gets hexproof.
Yeah. You have to have the mana open. Yeah, definitely possible if they happen to have the enchantment removal.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys, a board clear would kill it if you were to do it beforehand, thinking it has hexproof, and then you just get board cleared.
Yes.
All right, guys, that's the end of our multicolor. This was our longest video by far. Please leave us a comment down below. Let me know what you guys thought of all of the multicolor cards, and let me know what your favorite one is. I mentioned in there that mine was the green, white, blue Mythic. I think that card is absolutely insane. So don't forget to leave us a comment. Yanks, thanks for joining us.
Anytime.
And we will see you guys, actually it should be up right now, so make sure you guys go check out our colorless video, the very last one of all of our Dominaria Limited set reviews. See you guys in the next video. Have a good night.